What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily. So this is Samsung's A06. It's their most affordable smartphone for 2025, and it's... Hold on, wait a second. This is Samsung's A06. Sorry, I got last year's A05 confused with this year's A06 because they're literally the exact same phone. I feel like we tend to give these smartphone companies a lot of flack when there's not much new with a new device, even though they try and highlight a bunch of changes. But with the A06 this year, Samsung has truly reached a new low. This new phone is spec for spec absolutely identical to last year's phone, and I truly don't understand why Samsung even bothered to release it. I mean, just from a sustainability perspective, remember, Samsung doesn't give you a charger in the box because they're trying to be green, but they spent resources and manpower to repackage all the same parts and pieces and wasted the ink and cardboard to print up a new box and then shipped this new phone all over the world to places where the A05, literally the exact same device, already existed. I mean, talk about unsustainable. Beyond that, I feel like it's sort of insulting to their customers to say this is a new phone or an updated phone. Though I guess to Samsung's credit, they actually only use the word new one time on the product page for the A06. And the only change they allude to is reduced thickness of the phone itself. So I guess Samsung's got me there. They aren't even saying this A06 is new or different or updated. In fact, they use the same descriptions, almost word for word on some points, on both the A05 product page and this A06 product page. That's kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, am I crazy? Am I missing something? Why is it necessary to release this phone at all? This couldn't possibly have been within Samsung's roadmap or long-term plan. And I know last year's A05 wasn't peak smartphone. It's not like there wasn't anything Samsung could have changed to make their cheapest smartphone a little better, especially for customers who maybe don't have a ton of money to spend in the first place. Even though there's nothing really new about this new A06, I obviously have a lot to say about it. But before that, if you actually want something new, you should check out the new Dream X50 Ultra Robot Vacuum and Mop, this video's sponsor. Unlike Samsung, Dream is actually innovating, and their new X50 Ultra has 3 key features that put it even further ahead of the competition. It's now one of the most powerful robot vacuums, with 20,000 pascals of sucking power, and paired with its new Hyperstream Detangling Duo Brush, it gets deeper into the carpet fibers, and its dual brush heads remain tangle-free from hair. Its home mapping and obstacle avoidance are still top-notch, but the X50 Ultra introduces the industry-first Pro Leap system that allows the vacuum to identify thresholds or objects that it can, get this, literally leap over, thanks to a new set of wheels on stilts that lift it up and launch it over whatever it sees. And for getting underneath things, its new VersaLift navigation system will lower its LiDAR sensors and allow it to slide under low-laying furniture, giving it the lowest clearance of any robot vacuum, while still not missing a spot. And oh yeah, it's also a mop, with rotating brush heads that flex outward to clean along corners and edges, and that get automatically cleaned themselves thanks to the upgraded Ace Clean dry board housed within its docking station. Check out my full review of the new Dream X50 Ultra, and be sure to take advantage of the pre-sale offer from now until February 13th, where you can snag a heck of a discount, 2-year warranty, and a free cleaning kit. Click the links in the video description to learn more. So aside from the fact that the A06 is irritatingly identical to last year's phone, I want to first stress that as Samsung's cheapest entry-level smartphone, this is not a bad device. We are so far removed now from the horrendous A0 phones of yesteryear that were barely usable, and I have no problem recommending this one, just like last year's, as a solid entry-level device. I still think going 1 pip higher in the A series is the best move if you want that perfect combination of price and performance. For this year, it's the A16, but this one is still perfectly fine if you need something to communicate with friends and family, scroll through social media, guide you through your day, and just generally stay connected. And hey, if you want to occupy yourself with a game from time to time, it can handle that too. But no matter how decent the A06 might be, it's still not going to be a phone that literally anyone should buy for any reason when you can just get the A05 and you end up with the exact same phone. I mean, okay, size-wise, I didn't expect any changes. At 6.7 inches, this is pretty much the size for smartphones nowadays. And if you go up or down a tenth of an inch either way, it really doesn't matter. Samsung also continues to use this dated design with thick screen bezels, the old school selfie camera notch, and a big old bottom chin that just screams budget. I guess using this screen and design keeps costs low, but at some point they have to move past this, right? If you want to get really specific, yes, the new A06 is a few millimeters thinner, I guess, and it has a flatter frame, but like, does that matter? No, not at all. I'm sure Samsung just picked some other parts from a different A, M, or F series phone and reused that flat frame here. The phone itself is still all plastic. The back panel has the exact same design, just in a different color. What's weird though is if you look closely or check the diagrams on Samsung's website, they flipped the cameras. So the main camera is the top lens, the depth sensor is the bottom lens. I don't know why it was set up the other way on the A05 to begin with, but I guess it's good the placement makes more sense now. The cameras themselves, though, are exactly the same. And the only other actual thing Samsung did add to the A06 is a fingerprint sensor within the power button. So if you want to say this whole entire video is fake and they're not the exact same phones, fine. But this is it. And if we're being honest, not only is this not even a feature by today's standards, it probably shouldn't have been left off the A05 to begin with. It couldn't possibly have put Samsung over budget last year. The thing that irks me the most about the A06 though is just the fact that Samsung used the exact same processor as last year with the same configuration and RAM options. So they can't even say the phone itself is faster or better performance-wise. And that's just not okay with me. Look, I know most people don't upgrade phones every year. There's arguably no reason why smartphone companies should even announce a new phone every year anymore. But if they are, and it's not any faster or any more powerful, why release it at all? And I know I said that last year's A05 and this year's A06 both perform perfectly fine for what they are. I stand by that. But the MediaTek Helio G85 inside both these phones is a nearly 5-year-old chip now. There are countless other options Samsung could have gone with to at least give this A06 some boost in performance. I mean, did they just have a bucket of G85 processors that they had to use and couldn't throw away? Or was this seriously the only option to keep this phone cheap? Whatever the actual reason is, it should have been reason enough to just skip the A06 for a year. It's no big deal. We wouldn't mind. But now Samsung has this phone that they can't say is any better than the previous one it replaces. And that's gotta look worse than just not releasing something new at all. And one more thing about this. I know this is supposed to be an entry-level device. I know it's supposed to be as inexpensive as possible, but there's so much upside potential here that it doesn't make any sense not to just put in some better processor. Samsung didn't reach the limits on this phone. There's no ceiling. They're literally laying on the floor with this phone's specs. There just had to have been a way to give the A06 something to make it better. It's the same story with the display. The A06 has literally the exact same screen as the A05, and honestly, it's probably the worst thing about this phone overall. You get a big 6.7-inch screen, which is great, but it's a PLS LCD panel with a 1600 by 720 resolution, and it's 60 Hz. Now, I know that iPhone users don't mind that refresh rate, but anyone else with some decency and standards knows this isn't a great screen setup in 2025. They could have given this phone an AMOLED display, and even if they kept everything else the same, that would have at least combated the glare with a higher overall brightness and better colors and less atrocious off-axis viewing. If not that, they definitely could have bumped up the refresh rate. Even 90 Hz feels a little faster and a little more responsive than this. I think most importantly though, they absolutely should have opted for a 1080 resolution screen. I mean, honestly, at this size, I think anyone can tell the screen looks a bit pixely. 720p at 6.7 inches is low resolution no matter what you're used to or how cheap you think this phone is supposed to be. Beyond anything else, this is probably where the A06 should have seen a change or an upgrade or something to set it apart from last year's phone. I feel like all I've done so far is complain, so let me give you one positive. The 5,000 milliamp hour battery inside this phone, which is the exact same one as last year, is good. And paired to its supported 25-watt charging speeds, you can use this phone for a full day and then charge it up as fast as an S25. Seriously, this arguably isn't a very high standard, but it's a highlight nonetheless. And as far as the cameras, well, I really have no idea why Samsung swapped the lenses around if they were just going to keep the lenses the exact same. Maybe people were accidentally covering the main lens with their finger on the A05 last year when it was at the bottom. But again, there was every opportunity to make a change here, and Samsung just didn't. The main 50 megapixel lens is fine, I guess, but the 2 megapixel macro lens as a secondary is just unnecessary in today's world. Add an ultra-wide lens, improve the camera software, and bring this phone up a couple of notches. Camera tech is all Samsung has focused on for like the last 3 or 4 years now on their top tier phones. So bring that focus to these cheap phones now. It's okay. People are still going to buy the expensive ones anyway. I guess if you want to toss in one more thing that's new with the A06, it's that Samsung is promising a whopping 2 years of Android updates, which they seemingly didn't guarantee on the A05. So yay, I guess. If you do buy the A06 today, for whatever reason, it should stay up to date for the next 2 years, even though this phone won't really get any of the software features Samsung is really pushing nowadays, which is basically all Galaxy AI, but at least your icons will look different. I think truly the craziest thing about this A06 saga, though, is that while these phones aren't technically sold in the US, you can still buy them from third-party sellers, and on Amazon right now, the A06 is literally cheaper than the A05. I don't really have a great explanation for this. I mean, we're talking about 10 or 20 bucks in real dollars, and prices fluctuate all the time. But on a $100 phone, that's a 10 or 20% swing. I mean, is Samsung or their third-party retailers realizing that nobody is buying the A06, so they're just giving up and giving it away? I mean, I guess if you have an A05, like obviously you're not going to get an A06. That would be a ridiculous decision. But if you have an older A0 something, or maybe a different device entirely, the only way Samsung or their authorized resellers could possibly get you to choose the unchanged, non-upgraded A06 over last year's A05 is if the A06 were cheaper. And I guess that's exactly what they had to do. But what do you guys think about this whole thing? Is there something I'm missing with the A06? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though, or at least found it somewhat interesting. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.